Alright guys, what is up? Patrick Newman here. I am here to tell you about buying new cameras in 2018 and why this year the A7S Mark II, the A7R Mark II, and the GH4 are going to be huge. Alright, so if you're looking into buying a new camera this year, you know, the way I've always done it when I was starting out is that I would buy the last generation's old cameras. And what I mean by that is right now, the A7R Mark III, the A7S Mark III is coming out soon, the GH5, and even the GH5S just came out. So you know that they're going to be coming out with all these new cameras and all these photographers, videographers, and people that have been doing this for a couple of years and bought these older generation camera new, like the A7S Mark II, A7R Mark II, the GH4, are starting to offload them. And what that's really going to do is that's going to give really good cameras to college students, to people that are just starting out, learning how to do video and to tell stories doing video. And I think that is a great thing because these are the first generation of cameras that I still think at a low cost are still really good professional cameras. This is my cat. She's gonna make noise and probably claw at my back for some reason all throughout this video. She's being really weird today, and yeah, so the A7S Mark II, the A7R Mark II, and the GH4 are going to be more relevant this year than they ever have in the past, and that's because of the new generations of cameras that are coming out now haven't offered enough to make people want to buy those cameras new, except for the people that are already established with these cameras already. And what I mean by that are the people that already own A7R Mark IIs, A7S Mark IIs, GH5s are going to jump up to the new camera so that they can show their client that they have the newest and nicest gear available. But what that does for other people that are just getting into the market is that it brings the camera values down a lot. Now, I can't remember where I saw this, but the A7R Mark II is now being sold for about $1,600 used. And that means, you know, for people that are in college and school, they have a lower barrier to entry into these professional and really good looking cameras that I wish was available when I was just starting out in video. When I was starting out, you know, for video, I think the best camera I could buy was the 5D Mark II, which I still bought for $1,200. And that did 1080 24p. And, you know, at that point, that camera was just so loud you couldn't really do audio around it. You had to like put it in a box to make it work, you know? So I think these cameras are going to give people a chance to be on a higher professional level earlier than they were before. Now for people that are just going to be going into video, buying a camera at $1,600 is awesome, especially a camera like the A7S Mark II. Now the A7S Mark II has S-Log3 internal, which makes your video format super flat, and I would only recommend shooting in that picture profile for video. For, you know, taking photos, you really need the RAW and you really need the JPEG and the depth of the color of the other picture profiles. But I also wouldn't recommend buying the A7S Mark II for photos. I had an impossible time taking photos, mainly because of the autofocus and mainly because the file sizes were so small. That made me want to sell the camera and eventually sell the camera and buy the A7R Mark II because of the 42 megapixel massive sensor on this camera, the awesome photo sites, and it still has S-Log2, which I think is more than fine for the type of videos I'm going to be using this camera for, like this vlog and maybe some just, you know, fun shoots on the side for really small paying clients. I think it's a great camera for that type of stuff. I wish somebody had explained this to me the way I'm about to explain it to you. When you buy a camera, it lends itself to a certain type of video that you can create, where the A7S Mark II and the A7R Mark II and the GH4, all these cameras are great. They really make it so that you can make a certain type of video, and I think it is a higher rated video and a higher quality video than the 5D ever could, than most cameras really could for people at such a low cost. And that's why I think this next year is going to be huge for people in college who are trying to get into video and trying to start making their own little production companies, start getting clients, and, you know, I think it's a great thing. So here are my 5 reasons why you should be considering buying an A7S Mark II, an A7R Mark II, or a GH4 this next year instead of the brand new cameras that are coming out. So reason number 1, these cameras are going to be cheap. I've been seeing GH4s going for $900 and lower even. I've seen them for $800, which is crazy and blowing my mind. I mean, these were some of the first cameras that came out to do 4K internal, you know, less than 4 years ago. The A7Rs, the A7Ss, those are going to be even cheaper than they were before, which are great cameras. I mean, I cannot stress this enough. They are not blown out of the water by these new cameras. You know, everything except for the GH5 are offering something that is already on the market in their old cameras, and I just can't believe that that's what they're offering. So reason number 2 is that these cameras are great quality. You know, you cannot beat 4K internal on these cameras doing S-Log2 and S-Log3 like the A7R and the A7S Mark II both do. All right, so number 3, these cameras still add a really high quality to your production. I mean, you can use this for B-roll at 120 frames per second, 60 frames per second. You can throw these on a Ronin M and it still looks great. I think these are some of the best cameras that you can still buy. I don't think the A7R Mark III, the A7S Mark III, the GH5 might change the game just a little bit, but I don't think it really does. I think these cameras are still super relevant. All right, now for the 4th reason, I think you should be going with the A7R Mark II. And that's because it has a 42 megapixel sensor, takes amazing stills, and still takes really good high quality professional video. This camera is the one that I use the most now for my own projects, not for client projects. I still use the Red, but I still think that this is the best camera around at this price point. You know, for the 5th reason, I just think all of these cameras are great tools and they will lend themselves greatly to your story that you're trying to tell. You know, just because these cameras are awesome and they do 4K and they do slow-mo and they do all these things, at the end of the day, the person that has to tell the story is you. And the thing that is most important is story in the end. If you have a boring ass story, no one's gonna care. Alright, so when you're looking to buy one of these cameras, what you need to ask yourself is, what lenses do I already have that will work with this camera? Will I need to buy a Metabones adapter? Will I need to buy more audio equipment to work with it, like a Video Mic Pro from Rode? Are you going to need to buy a cage for it? Are you going to need to buy more batteries? You know, everything that you might think you need to really sit down and check and see what the total cost is going to be to switch over to another camera like this. For me, it was a mere, you know, $3,500 when I first bought the A7S Mark II. Now, that's what I bought with, you know, 8 batteries, with a Metabones adapter. I even bought another lens to go with it because I had just broke my 24-105, and so I went with the Sigma Art lens, which I am filming on now. So if you're going to buy the A7S Mark II, make sure that you still have a camera that you feel like you can take photos. I often wished that I still had the 5D Mark II just to take photos, and it still would have made a nice little secondary camera. Hi, cat. Give me a sec. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching my first video of the new year. I know my vlogs from last year were super rough, and that's why I didn't like doing these for a little while, is because I didn't know why I didn't like them until I figured out by watching a couple of other vlogs on YouTube. And now I think I'm starting to go down the right path. But please comment and subscribe below. It'll help me out a ton. If you have any questions about what type of camera you should buy, please ask away. I'd be happy to answer it. And if there's anything that you would like to see about photo or video, please ask. I will make a video about it. And if you ask nicely, I will make it. I promise. All right. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.